You have to be very kind of like less salesy and more talking about the story behind your brand. That's the content that people wants to see.
I know I don't only speak for myself when I say that social media marketing can feel very overwhelming. From trying to keep up with all the algorithm changes to trying to stay visible and relevant in the sea of fashion brands on the platform. Things are constantly changing, and whether we like it or not, social media marketing is still a key part of a fashion brand's strategy. That's why I invited Zoila Castro onto the podcast. Zoila is the co founder of Nomad Agency, which specializes in digital marketing for luxury, fashion, and lifestyle brands. Zoila works with our clients to reimagine brand experiences in today's evolving consumer landscape. In today's episode, you'll learn about effective social media strategies, content creation tips, and how to build a loyal community around your brand. Whether you're an emerging fashion brand or looking to improve your social media presence, this episode is packed with actionable insights and practical advice. So without further ado, here's my episode with Zoila Castro. Hi, Zoila. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We're so excited to have you here and hear more about what you do.
Thank you, Jasmine, for inviting me. I'm so excited for this interview.
Of course. So, why don't we start off by you just telling me a little bit about your background? I want to know how you got into the space that you're in and tell us a little bit about Nomad Agency and what you guys do there too.
Awesome. Yes. So my name is Zoila Castro, and I start working in fashion like more than 10 years in Peru. I'm from Peru. I was working with a Brazilian company located in Peru. I realized that I like more kind of like the marketing side of the fashion products that we were working with China and Brazil. It was very interesting, like developing the
Mm,
product, the commercialization with different countries. And that's why I decided to study a master degree related with luxury management because I was working before in fast fashion kind of, and
mm,
I saw all the side that people don't like, of course, the pollution, the problem with the price of the product you're paying, and then how you commercialize to the end. So I didn't like that part. So I was like, I want to change that in the way that I want to work with more like elevated and more like luxury goods. That's why I decided to study luxury management in Milan, in Italy. And then after that, I come back to Peru and I was fashion director of institute. So I was related with more like education. And I love education. I love to teach. I love to talk to. So I think that education was like it's still been my passion. So when COVID hit, it was very, very hard for my country. They closed the borders. And in some point, when they opened the borders, I was like, okay, I want to move just to try 3 months to Miami. And I saw so many opportunities here.
mm,
I was like, why not start doing what I was doing in Peru, that it was more like fashion marketing, but here in Miami for luxury brands, not necessarily fashion. Also, I was open for lifestyle brands. And that's how I started Nomad. Just me, my team in Peru, because also they lost their jobs in Peru. So I was trying to work with them because I trust them. And now I have a co-founder that it's very funny because she's from my hometown, but I met her here in Miami.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah. So Valeria. So we kind of like joined forces to grow the company.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. During COVID, how did you navigate starting a new business during COVID?
So what happened is that because I was having more experience in product management, but at the same time, when I was director of this fashion institute, it was one of the biggest fashion institute in my country. I
Mm,
was working also with the marketing team, and I didn't mention that before, but I took like online course in the Kellogg University,
mhm.
so related with digital marketing.
Okay.
So when I moved here in Miami, I was like, okay, I want to combine my knowledge in fashion, in product management, but also digital marketing. And that's how I discovered that it was lacking. Like a lot of brands in Miami, they were lacking of this kind of a strategy in their content.
Mhm.
But even though you can find, of course, agencies that are creating content for the Instagram or TikTok, if you don't have the background of fashion, it's very difficult to understand
Mm,
what the target audience wants and also
right.
what the owner wants to showcase in their content. So it's very important to us to understand a little bit of both sides to create the content. For example, I have fashion designers in my team. So they understand, of course, of the fabric, the quality
Mm,
is more like bridal, more like luxury goods. And in the case of Valeria, when she joins and now she's also the co-founder, she has more experience in like Google Ads, Google Analytics. So when we joined forces and we started like growing the company, it was very like we were like covering all the angles that we want to cover for to grow a brand in the digital world, but not only digital, because also we work with photographers if they want to launch a campaign or if they want to do events.
hmm
The community is so important. And for example, she is a leader of few communities here in Miami. And we know kind of that side as well of the community that is very important when you want to grow a brand.
Yeah, and that's such a important thing that you mentioned, having that just that perspective from a brand's point of view and the marketing side, because I think, as brands, we could probably just try to find any type of marketing company or social media management that's
Yeah.
that's helping just a variety of different brands, but they don't have that unique perspective of what it takes to grow a community for a fashion brand. So I think that's so special.
Exactly. What is happening now is that a digital marketing or an agency needs to be more niche. Like, for
Mhm.
example, if you have a restaurant, you need an agency that has experience in restaurants.
Sure.
Same with fashion or lifestyle, or if you, in my case, Nomad is more like elevated brands, luxury brands in general, because also we work, for example, with Pilates brands as studios.
Mhm.
The Pilates studio, even though, of course, they sell the classes, they also have like clothing line.
Mhm.
So now more we're talking about a lifestyle brand, and that's very important to understand that you don't need to close in just one type of product. You can jump in service, so you can like have an holistic kind of offering to your target.
Sure. And I'm curious with you kind of, focusing in on the fashion and lifestyle aspect, what do you notice is different between marketing for fashion as opposed to a brand that is maybe not product based or, a marketing agency that handles different things?
For sure. The first thing I will say that of the creation, like the content creation with the models, but also with the UGC creators, has to be very created. In
Mm,
our case, because it's more like a price range that is like elevated, you need to be very careful of how you present the brand outside.
mhm,
For example, if you're jumping on a trend, has to be connected with the elevated values that has our brand, even though the communication on TikTok is different than Instagram. You can, of course, be more like spicy and trendy on TikTok, but you have like a limit, right?
mhm,
Then the behind the scenes, for example, if you're doing a fashion show or if you're doing a photo shoot, you need, I mean, this is for every brand that you need a mood board of inspiration,
mm,
but also you need like a map of products that okay, this one is for this model for this specific trend. So the creation of the places with the garments is very important.
mm.
Otherwise, aesthetically, they are not going to match when you're showcasing the product on social media. So the idea is to have more like kind of like art director,
Okay, so
but
an art
for also
director.
content. So you
Right.
need that knowledge. Or for example, if you have an influencer, you need to send a guideline how to showcase the product and accessorize the product so doesn't go to the other way of communication or another type of, I don't know, to Gen Z or maybe to millennial, depending on your product. Of course,
Right.
first to choose the correct influencer as well. But there are certain things that you need to be very specific, very creative, and very kind of like art director for this type of content. So makes sense for your brand.
Yeah.
That's why it's very important to at least have someone that has that knowledge as a fashion designer or someone that has experience before in fashion so they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I love how intentional that is. And the idea of like you need to have either someone with the art director mind or you need to have that perspective because it should be intentional and curated. And there's something else that you said. Oh, the influencers. So
Mhm.
that's something else because, we see brands that are investing in influencers to collaborate with, right? And then you'll send them a piece and then you end up unhappy with how they style the piece or how the photos come back, right? And so I
Exactly.
think it's so important what you're saying to at least have some kind of guideline on the styling and things of that nature so that you're getting content that you can actually use and that matches your brand aesthetic.
Exactly. Because, for example, in the past, we have a client that their fabric, if it's n- it was if it was too exposed to the sun, kind of changed a little bit of the color, and it was
Mm,
dark as well. So kind of the guideline is like you have to be inside, like indoors, but like kind of indirect sun or the lighting should be styled with this type of color of shoes. So match kind of like the vibe or like the boho vibe. So
mm-hmm.
that type of direction is very important for the influencer to know. And also when you receive the content, it's like, okay, now I can like use this for TikTok and Instagram because sometimes happen that they do the collaboration, but then you can repropose the content and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because sometimes doesn't match with the vibe that you're posting on the other social media. So that and the makeup as well. It's-
Wow.
For example, sometimes they're like they just wake up and they're wearing the dress, and sometimes you need to be put a little bit more effort
Yeah.
to showcase better the dress. So that guidelines is very important.
Yeah. And I think brands need to know that they have the power to give those directives. If you are paying someone or a social media influencer agrees to do, a collaboration, then it's totally fine to have those standards.
Exactly. If it's paid collaboration, they should have that. And of course, if you're proposing the content, you should add that in the agreement because otherwise they can sue you as well. So
Oh,
you have
wow.
to be very careful about
Yeah, that's good. So I want to backtrack a little bit because I got a little excited with
it.
everything you
Yeah.
were talking about. So I want to ask you why is social media still a relevant part of a marketing strategy today in 2025? There's some people who are like so overwhelmed by it and are like, I don't want to mess with social media anymore. But I think it's still such an integral part. But I want to know your opinion, why you believe it's, so important for brands.
I think it's very important because nowadays all the generations consume social media. My mom right now is using TikTok, for example. She's scrolling nonstop. And you have the new generations that are like consuming as well. So social media gives you kind of in the organic side, gives you the exposure that you need if you use it well. If you're posting just for posting, it's better not that. It's better if you don't post.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are brands that are like, okay, I want to post in Pinterest because if it's fashion, I want in Pinterest, I want in TikTok, I want in Instagram and YouTube Shorts. Wait a minute. First, you don't need to overwhelm you. And of course, if you're hiring an agency, it's expensive to be in all these platforms
Yeah.
because you can just copy paste the same content, the same hashtag, and the same captions for all of them. You can repurpose content for sure. For example, Pinterest. Pinterest, I would recommend 100% because Pinterest is like fine wine. If you post today photo, in 2 years, it's going to still perform it. It's going to still having views. Of course, if you put correctly the caption, or if it's a video, the song, etc., just be careful to have a copywriting. But Pinterest is very, very friendly to people that doesn't have knowledge of social media.
Mm.
And it's very, very like the between the social media to go to the website and buy, it's very close. It's not like a reel and you have to go to the bio and you have to click in bio and then go to the website.
Yeah.
Interest, you like a pin, you click and you're in the website. So the conversion rate is very, very high. So I will encourage if you feel very overwhelmed, at least start on Pinterest and Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram, you can propose the same for Pinterest, but it's very important at the end of the day because it's you're talking to your community or the potential customers that you want for your brand.
Mhm.
And you don't need to post 5 times, 6 times per week. The people is like, no, I need to post every day on TikTok. That's a lie. That was like maybe 2 years ago that people even like, if you see like influencers that are posting 3 times per day, is because they are already influencers
Mhm.
and they need to like post deals and of course trends that are happening every 5 seconds. But you don't need to do that. You're a brand. So every time they're posting has to be intentional, has to have like an storytelling. Doesn't need to be very dense. Like, oh, all the videos I need to talk 10 minutes to the camera. No, what I'm talking is like think what the target wants in your content and then prepare at least 3 posts on Instagram minimum. And you can maybe like play around that so you can communicate with the potential customers or community that you want to grow. What I would don't recommend is like if you want to be very salesy with your post, like, okay, this price, this is my address, that's not going to work. You have to
Mm.
be very kind of like less salesy and more talking about the story behind your brand, more about the design that was inspired, more about the behind the scenes of the photo shoot of the launch that you did. That's the content that people wants to see. For example, we went to Bridal Fashion Week
Mm.
and we were with one of the biggest bridal brands and we create all the behind the scenes content. They of course have an amazing team for the more high end videography and etc. But the behind the scenes with the models, with influencers and everything also has another type of reaction with the community that they want as well in their strategy. And that type of connection with that community that when they see the influencer reacting to the wedding dress that they try on, have more results sometimes than a video that was high end produced in Paris.
Mhm.
So you need to be very mindful with your budget, what you can produce on your time, with your time, and don't overwhelm you. Just to know where to start. When you are like more a pro, okay, you can start on TikTok as well. But I think for people that think they are not very technical savvy or they're overwhelmed, I would recommend for sure start from Pinterest and Instagram.
Yeah, that's good. That's some great practical advice. And let me just say, you set a lot of people free when you said they don't have to post 5 times a week on social media. Uh,
Yes.
I love that so much because people are like so tired. And you're so right. It becomes where it's not intentional anymore. You're just like posting because you're supposed to post every day. But let me ask you this. So you hear that a lot though, right? Like that you have to post at least 2 times a day or like all of these crazy stats if you want to get discovered. And I feel like right now on Instagram it feels like it's so much harder for brands to get discovered more than ever. So I'm curious with that strategy of posting less but more intentional, how can brands still gain visibility and, make their presence known?
I will say that you need to think more about the content formula that you have.
Okay.
For example, I have a client that is a Pilates studio, and we start posting a year ago around June, July. Now they are like almost 23,000 followers on Instagram,
Wait,
on TikTok.
0? You started 0 in
I
July,
think
or
they have like 50 followers, something
okay,
like that.
pretty much 0, like,
Yeah.
from ground zero.
And from kind of like from the beginning with this brand, and we start posting 3 times per week on Instagram, just 3 times. But every time that we posted or we were thinking about creative ideas for the brand, you need to think outside the box because Pilates studios, there are a lot. Let's be
Mhm,
honest. Right now, it's very trendy. Everybody is doing Pilates, even though they have Legri or another activity. They call it Pilates because Pilates is kind of the trendy word.
mhm,
But this studio, it was real about Pilates. So we make sure that the content strategy or the content formula, it was between something relatable with the target audience that we want. But in this case, we didn't want to be a pinkish, girlish brand. No, we didn't want to be related with something more focused with exercise and change your body or be thick or thin. No. In this case, we're talking more about the lifestyle of the person that goes to this Pilates studio.
Mm.
Same with fashion. When
Mhm.
we work, for example, with this dress brand, when we're talking about the bride, you have different brides.
Yeah.
You have the boho bride, you have the bride that is more minimal, you have the bride that do weddings that are more than 200K per wedding,
Mhm.
right? So we understanding that you create the content to talk to this person. That's why it's very important to understand, okay, what is the target audience that I have? This person goes to have a smoothie of $20 or $10.
Mhm.
This person is in ClassPass with points or is buying a membership of, I don't know, Pilates of $500 or like New York with the Tracy Anderson that is $1,000 kind of.
Mhm.
What type of person I'm talking with? So knowing that, what type of content they consume,
Yeah.
what type of trend they will like, what type of bag they use, what type of drink. Maybe they drink coffee, maybe matcha, maybe they're from LA, they look smoothies and everything gluten free. So you need to know all, all kind of like the journey of the target audience to relate or create content that people are saying, oh, they're talking to me.
Yeah.
This is me. And when you're promoting your product more directly, like, okay, link in bio to shop this, they're like, yes, they're still talking to me because this brand is me.
Yeah.
So in these three posts, for example, for the Pilates Suite, we were like making sure that this is the type of target that we want. If you feel included to the club and the community, you're welcome. We're like in open arms. But I think it was more like a mature audience. And sometimes you have other brands that are more like Gen Z and more like students.
Mhm.
So I think it's very important to know the journey of your customer, to know the values and the keywords that you're going to use or the trends that you're going to choose for your brand.
Yeah, that's so important. And I'm curious with that because that's such an important piece. And you can create the content to speak exactly to that type of customer. But how do you keep them engaged? Because that's another thing. I feel like you can make all the posts that feel like, oh, I am this girl and I resonate with this. But how do you keep them coming back and returning to for more and to want to be a part of this community and not something that they just scroll past and like because they resonate with it?
I think when you have the first like impression of the client or the potential customer, when I talk about content formula, is okay, you have the attention because you did something trendy that they like it.
Hmm.
And the second one is going to be maybe you about your brand. Maybe the third one is going to be about an event that you're going to do with the customers or the potential customer. You are like partnering with another brands that have similar audience. So you can mix and match that as well. And they don't feel that it's only an online presence. Something that a lot of brands have like kind of like mistakes is they don't create this kind of like presence also like not only online. You need to build the sense of community, also creating these pop-up events every 3 months, 4 months, connecting with another creators, connecting with another brands,
Hmm.
create of this sense of reality. They're not only online, you're creating like a trusty presence.
Right.
That's how also when you are starting your brand, it's very important to work with creators and UGC creators. You don't need to spend like an influencer is going to charge you $5,000 at TikTok. No. What you want to do is like knowing your target. Okay, this city is my target audience. So I'm going to start connecting with the creators that are in that city and create like a very engaging, nice event. But these creators need to have an audience that are similar to the audience that I want.
Right.
Or the small creators that maybe have 20K, 50K. If you want 100K, but it depends of the city. Sometimes, of course, they charge. So I will maintain between 20K, 30K followers for those creators to go because they're more open to collab with brands. But I think having like this part of the brand talking, this is who I am, but also having another people in other channels talking and give you the trust. Yes, this brand is like this. This is
Mm.
legit. Give you the trust that sometimes makes you stop scrolling and making the decision to buy something or to consume something.
Yeah, because I think that that definitely gives them the cosign, right? Especially for
Yeah,
new and emerging brands. There's not a lot of people who know about you. You're not like, a Lululemon or like a brand that is well
exactly.
known where you automatically have the trust because you can see the retail store and you see people shopping, you see people talking about it. And so you're
Yes,
right, you have to create those touch points, whether it be like in-person sales, using UGC content creators that have their own following that trust them to
Mhm.
partner with them. And I think that's so important, especially choosing the right ones. I find that like there are some content creators that even seem like they have a lot of followers, but they're not engaged with their following too. So would you
Yes,
say that's something to look for?
yes. But it depends. For example, I work with another brand that we reach out to creators that are more like models, kind of UGC, that we use for modeling.
Okay,
So even though they don't have the big audience and we know that they're not going to convert on sales, we know they have kind of the stereotype of what we want on our channels.
gotcha.
And they work as a collaboration, for example. And but there are other creators that are they want to be like bigger influencers that they already convert, but you need to analyze many things there. For example, they have a stories talking to the audience, linking things, everyday posting, that type of things. Oh, they're talking to an audience. But if the creator is only posting nice pics and talking to nobody, okay, people follow this creator because maybe it's pretty or it's funny, but not necessarily is going to convert. You have those type of creators, but it depends of the goal that you want.
Mhm. And besides the UGC, we're talking about posts that convert. I think that's the most important, right? Like, we don't want to just have a social media presence to be there. Of course, it's great to have that community, but I think the point of it at the end of the day is like we want it to convert to sales. So I'm
Exactly.
curious, what other types of posts besides UGC are high converting, in your opinion?
High converting, I will say that, for example, what it happens with the clients that I have is a lot of behind the scenes. They have photo shoots always with models, like high end models.
Hmm.
So we create some kind of trends with the models, and people like to see that type of content because there are like runway models, but doing like Alex Consani, that it's like very engageable and very funny.
Hmm.
So they love that. But they also love to see kind of like the transformation, the before and after, or the process of the garment versus the runway, the
Hmm.
type of content that is kind of the storytelling that you're doing for your audience. They love that.
Yeah.
What other one that will convert? Voiceovers of the business or owner talking about very openly on TikTok, of course. Instagram, I would not recommend to do that, but for TikTok, yes, to be very open and said, this is how I start my business. This is how I was inspired, for example. And you have examples of that, not openly on fashion, but you have in other categories. I think it's very important as a marketer in general to analyze different categories, what is working with them
Hmm.
that could work on fashion and make it your style, with your like season, right? So kind of
Yeah.
like you change your things, of course, but the storytelling on TikTok converts a lot. Like I saw books related with cooking, for example, that the writer of the daughter of the writer was talking about the book and the journey of her mom. Of course, the video became viral, and now the book is the top two from the New York Times.
Wow.
So it's kind of like how you present yourself and you are transparent in talking about your journey is how you connect. But in the very specific platform that you're going to be heard, as for example, TikTok. I will not post maybe that on Pinterest, for example.
Yeah. So that's great advice. Actually, one of the founders that we were interviewing on a couple episodes before was talking about how she did meta ads, so Instagram, Facebook ads with voiceovers, and those converted really well. So just
Yeah.
talking about the product storytelling, that kind of thing, which I feel like storytelling is kind of a just a theme that I'm hearing reoccurring here is that storytelling, authenticity behind the scenes are things that work really well for brands.
Yes. The idea is to put it together in a way that is very attractive to see. It's not every like, oh, for example, a tip that has to be with a voiceover is overlap the voiceover so it's faster. You don't have any space of like
Yeah.
of breathing, right?
Yeah.
So you need to edit it in a way that people is going to be engaged with the content that you're posting. And a great example is influencers, how they post their voiceover has to be very fast.
Mhm.
And but of course the tone of voice has to be calm. The the video editing has to be very also as well, very dynamic. So there are other things that you have to take in consideration to editing and just not to put a voiceover for sure, but it's something that you get better with the process.
Yeah. So we also talked about before about not being too salesy, right? But I still think there's room to have some kind of call to action to get these customers back on our websites to shop. And so what are different ways brands can incorporate different call to action to get their followers to turn into customers?
I would say sometimes you can be direct, but not to sales in the way like 25% discount, the type of things you don't
Right.
want to promote in the caption unless it's a special giveaway or something. For sure, people love to vote. So you have the option of voting on Instagram. So you're voting, you can see the result, and people is like also commenting. The polls on the stories as well works very, very well. But something on the stories that people needs to know is that you need to rest in the post of the stories. At least like the last story, if you want to have a lot of views on the stories, you need to at least have a pause and start from zero your story so it's gonna have more views. But at the end of the day, in when you add the caption and don't want to be very salesy, is to start a conversation with the target audience, you need to ask something. What do you think about this?
Mhm.
So people is like commenting, no, I didn't like it. No, no, no. For example, the Real Real, they were doing this competition between products, and the winner at the end of the day of all the bags was the Birkin bag. But they were posting every week the finalists, and at some point it was the Andiamo bag from Bottega Veneta and the Birkin bag, and everybody was like, no Birkin, no Andiamo.
So did they have to vote on which one they liked best or
Yes.
okay.
And people it was commenting. So it was a little bit of controversial, but at the same time, it was very fun to post and comment. Something like that is very attractive to comment because, of course, people that have the Andiamo, they're voting for Andiamo, they're like, no, it's the best, and Bottega Veneta is the best. And the other ones that are messy was like having a conversation. So the type of things that are kind of rivalry that engage a lot. And at the end of the day, their mess won, but you have to start this conversation that could be polemic if you are on TikTok, could be fun, like the real situation. For example, another Instagram account that I love is Sense. I think that's the name.
Oh,
Uh,
the store, the e-commerce store.
the e-commerce store.
Yeah.
And they were posting about looks from LA, looks from Miami. People were like, no, this is not how Miami girls looks like. So you start this kind of conversation, but without being very direct. And people is like, commenting nonstop on the post. I think that's very attractive too. At the end of the day, in the caption, you can say, and you can find this look in, da, 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 right? So I think there are very creative ideas to attract people, start the conversation, and close the deal also in the stories.
Yeah, and that engagement's important, right? Because from my understanding, when you have more engagement, your post is gonna get seen more, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
it's very
want to create
important to
those
reply
moments.
comments too. Sometimes you think the engagement is gonna come, you have to reply comments, you have to engage with other creators. Every time that you post, at least engage 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after. Don't post just to post.
Yeah, that's great. And so another thing that I've been seeing in this economy and this time right now is this whole idea of this like spending slowdown, right? So like I think customers are being more cautious with how they spend their money. I'm curious if you've seen this trend and, what encouragement you have for brands to still keep going and marketing themselves and building this loyal community that is converting. Have you seen this?
Yes. It's very funny that you asked me that because 2 days ago, with all the China tariffs and everything that is going on, manufacture very like brands in China, they're kind of exposing the cost of many luxury brands.
Yeah, I saw
The
that.
first one, it was their mess bag, but now they're saying that the cost of producing this is $1,400, and the reseller market it was $35,000 of the Birkin bag. Then they were talking about the Lululemon that is like I don't know how many, I think it was $6, $7, $8 produce it, and then they're like selling this for 150. So for sure, and people is reacting to that. You see response of the American market saying, I feel robbed to buy two leggings of almost it was like $90 or something like that for
Mm.
two leggings. And the cost is, very, very cheap. So what brands are doing right now, and it's very funny, at the same time, I saw that Dolce Gabbana launched their pet products. And why it's
Gotcha.
very interesting to see that luxury brands with this kind of reaction to the market is like, okay, maybe my bag is $4,000, $5,000, 2,500, the minimum. But then I can create another line, another type of products. Could be a little less, but it's a necessity for the market. That, for example, is the pet market.
Mm.
Hermes has that. They have like water bowls. They have I don't know. I saw many products for my doggy as well. That's why I know the prices were like crazy. Louis Vuitton have also like collars for that, and now Dolce Gabbana they start with Fefe that it was a perfume. Now they're doing the leash, the collar, that even like a mini bag like for dogs.
Mhm.
So they're developing this kind of market to kind of fight to still in the luxury market, but maybe with prices that are a little less than their normal products, but they can still fight for this, right? So I think it's very like interesting how they're like developing new products that don't make you look cheap, but at the same time, that it's going to give you revenue in some point in this right now that the market is very, very hard. So it's very interesting to see that the luxury brands are not and kind of understand what the consumer wants to offer something that maybe can help us. They can help them to still in the market and still growing.
Yeah. So I guess is the remedy for that, like you're saying, to create these entry level price point items as well as your more costly items to kind of, balance it out and give people a chance to be a part of your brand, even if they're not spending as much.
Exactly. For example, Celine, they understood that their market is a Pilates girl, the
Mm-hmm.
luxury Pilates girl, and they launched 2 weeks ago or a month ago water bottle for Pilates. I mean, you can use it also in the gym, but it's more like a stylish to use it in the Pilates.
Sure.
Also, other stuff for Pilates, even a mat for Pilates. Of course, expensive, more expensive than Alo for sure. But they understand that they need to develop this kind of other type of products to fight the market, and they are not as expensive as their current product that are the bags that they have. And they know that maybe it's going to slower down the people that is buying those products because also the market of secondhand is growing.
Oh, yeah. That's so true.
So you have the people is talking about the recession. It's not we don't know yet, but also the second-hand market is growing. So it's a lot of things going on. And I think the luxury brands are trying to be very creative to survive.
Yeah, that's so true. So I want to shift gears again a little bit here. And so for brands who are just starting out, emerging fashion brands, whether it be luxury or lifestyle, they're just starting out and they want to start building that community. They want to start, implementing their social media strategy. Where's the first place to start? Like, I know practically speaking, you said Instagram and Pinterest would be, the simplest places to get
Yes.
started. But like, what component should they have on their social media page to just begin with? What's the first few posts that they should start with? Should they start even before they even have a product? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, as every brand, they need to prepare like a pre-launch campaign for sure.
Okay, so
Be more
pre-launching.
like it's coming up, right? Even though you know that maybe you're not going to have a lot of followers, the first followers that you're going to have are your family members and friends and people that supports you. But you need to prepare this campaign because otherwise, just to launch per launch, you need to have this sensation of something is going on, right? Could be on TikTok, could be in Instagram, could be in Pinterest. I would say that for the pre-launch campaign, doesn't worth it.
Mm,
But for Instagram, it's very important. And before you start the pre-launch campaign, you have to do kind of like we were talking about the content strategy, the content formula. That is very important to know. Okay, I want to be consistent because you need to be very consistent at least the first 6 months with the content. It's not like, oh, I'm posting today and maybe in 2 weeks. No, you need
mm,
to be very consistent. So it's very important to start kind of like producing all the content and editing all the content in advance. So everything is prepared for the launch, for the official launch.
yeah.
Of course, maybe you don't have a stock yet, but you have the product just for the photo shoot. With that, you can start creating content with maybe a model, maybe a UGC creator, maybe in an event to kind of showcase the product or explain about the product. So all the content that you need has to be prepared before the launch. So you have this content ready to post, but also you need to do this content formula to understand, okay, I'm going to create this trend. But if I'm doing the trend, I have to be very mindful to don't jump on the trend too late, right?
Mm.
Because that's another mistake. Okay, I'm going to do this trend, but maybe I'm launching in 2 months. This trend is not doesn't worth it. So that's why the pre-launch has to be more like timeless and more creative. And I would say that, yeah, you can hire a company to create the strategy and also create the ideas for this pre-launch campaign. But also, if you have the time, you can start doing your research. Like what other brands that have kind of the same target are doing or they did in the past. So I can be more creative. You don't need to copy, but like go outside the box and maybe also look with another categories. An example, every time that Loewe is launching a product, they're very creative because on TikTok they have a Gen Z crowd. So they're having a storytelling more like dramatic or funny. So you can explore and they sometimes, I'm sorry, Loewe sometimes take ideas from another categories and they make it in fashion.
Mm.
And have that as well as a tool later. Okay, for example, the first week I'm going to be like, if my product and it's a store located, I don't know, in Miami Beach. So I'm going to be putting this product in the most iconic part of Miami and doing different like shoots there of the product and like coming soon. Okay, something simple. You don't need a huge production, huge budget, and not even a model. Then I'm going to do a photo shoot with two models or one model. Okay, perfect. So you have the photo shoot, but also you need to have a mood board, not only for the photo shoot, you need a mood board for the videos and behind the scenes and timeless trends, because you also have timeless trends that they're not going to be kind of like, they're not going to end.
So what does that look like? Is it in terms of like sound trends or like
Sound trends,
okay.
more like lip sync sound trends or
Uh-huh.
kitchen as well. If you are
Okay.
not, if you know that Of course, that happens that the models, they are not creators. And sometimes you have to record 10 times so they can do the lip sync
Yeah.
as the, as the trend. You can do transitions before and afters. People love to see transformations.
Mm.
So don't jump in trends that are too on trend at that moment. When
Yeah.
you are already posting, you can jump in trends that are more like momentaneous. And yeah, I think organizing your content, look into other categories, be mindful that if you can commit with one platform, don't jump in another platform.
Yeah.
Just focus in one. And as I said, Pinterest is very, very, very friendly with people that is not very on technology. So that's another tool that I would recommend.
Yeah, that's good. So you're saying the same thing as like it's okay to post 3 times a week, but be consistent
Yeah.
is a caveat to that. So you need to be consistent, posting behind the scenes if it's a pre-launch. I'm sure you can post like inspiration too, that it resonates with the brand, right? The brand aesthetic, which is
Interview you with the process, with the manufacturing, everything. And of course, if you are like producing this locally, you need to show that people like that right now with all
yeah.
is happening. If you're producing in LA, you're producing in Miami, you're producing in Atlanta, and you show that you are paying higher, of course, cost for this product that is quality, you need to show that. That's a very big difference from other products.
Yeah. And I think that goes with all of the storytelling, right? You're still telling a story of like, this is where this product's from, this is what we do, and kind of like bringing the customer into that story so they feel like they're a part of what you're doing.
Exactly. And everything is content, even the B-rolls. Like, for example, you are in your office, maybe checking like swatches, or maybe having a call with your provider, or like having like a casting with the models. Everything is content. You put a tripod with your phone in a good angle. The most important thing is a good angle and the lighting.
Good angle, good lighting.
Yes. The good lighting and good angle is perfect. Then you
Yeah.
can cut, you can do whatever you want. But good angle and good lighting is a must. So everything is content. If you are having meetings, content. If you are walking, content. Like everything is content right now.
And that just simplifies the process so much too, because you could literally like just be doing your day to day and just set up a phone somewhere and then use that later, you know? So I think just being mindful about, okay, let
Exactly.
me make sure to film everything so we can use this for the social media.
And it's not necessary that you have to talk to the camera, because it's very understandable that they feel afraid of the camera. They don't feel confident, or
Hmm.
they don't want to be talking to the camera. Maybe, for example, I have clients that are like, I feel weird talking to the camera.
Yeah.
But now, after a year, they are doing all the trends with lip syncs to the camera.
Hmm.
Why? Because it's a process. It's
That's
not
so
like one
true.
day you will have this experience to be an influencer. You're like, yes, confident. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
And I think it's important too to know like, you can start somewhere, build up your confidence, create more content, but also if this is something that's not your sweet spot, like outsource it. You have Nomad agency, which helps designers and brands to do all this stuff for them. And sometimes it's just like, it's better to free up that time so that you can focus on like what you love to do, which is being a designer, creating this brand and having an agency take over and do this stuff. And I was looking at your guys' services and all the stuff that you do, and I saw that you guys even do like content days where you will just do the content for them,
Yes.
right?
So
What
we
what
have
is that?
content based. Yeah. So for example, we have, for example, New York Fashion Week or Bridal Fashion Week, and some of the brands hire us for a content day because it's a fashion show. So we go and we create the content. But first, we have a meeting, of course, with the client. They explain to us kind of the strategy that they have, the vision that they have, the personality, the concept of the collection. Very important. It's sexy. If it's, I don't know, more like modest, it's more like elegant, more timeless, minimal, etc. And after that call, we create a mood board with all those insights, and they have to approve it with a script. And then we go and we create the content. We did the content, we deliver the content, and the client posts the content whatever they want.
Mm.
So that's very kind of practical for fashion designers that want a specific content for a specific events.
Yeah.
That could be a photo shoot, could be a runway, it could be any event, a campaign, for example. So they have all the content ready just to post, and they
Yeah.
are in charge of posting.
What about the day-to-day stuff? You
Ongoing.
can, yeah.
Yeah,
So you
we
can
do
just,
ongoing. The majority of our clients is ongoing. Just we do the content day for brands that, for example, we work with a Argentinian brand and they are like doing a campaign in Miami, but they're based in Buenos Aires, for
mm,
example.
okay.
So we do the content day with models in Miami because it's kind of like summer, blah, blah, blah. So that's why we offer content days for like specific, more special occasions. But our forte is the ongoing service.
Gotcha.
That could be ads, could be photo shoots, could be the social media ongoing service that is minimum 6 months. Why we say minimum 6 months? Because sometimes you can see like how the account grows very fast, but if depending on the category of the type of product that you have, takes longer to grow. So that's why we do minimum 6 months to see like all the growing, there more consistency. Because without consistency, you can't grow.
That's good. And then for, let's say, a brand that's bootstrapping, right? They can't afford an agency right now. They're doing everything on their own. What are some things, some strategies that'll help them grow? Like maybe they've been stagnant where it's like, we can't grow past 1,000 followers, and they want to scale. Are things like ads helpful? Or like, what are some things that'll help boost them and get that extra kick so they can start growing on social media?
I will say that, and it's not because I want to sell my service, but for example, we have also brands that are like, I don't have the budget for ongoing service, but what we do is the strategy. Okay, this is the strategy. This is our recommendation. This is the content formula that you should use. And
Mm.
then they hire an intern or someone more junior to be in charge of that content.
So to implement those strategies that you're
Exactly.
giving.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. So they can create the content but knowing the guidelines that we give them to them. Of course,
Gotcha.
if they don't have the budget for that, what I would recommend is first analyzing what are the content that they're posting right now and kind of analyze why it's not working. Now we need to shift to a different direction. Every time that the content is not working is because you need to shift to another direction and try
Yeah.
another thing. It's not that the formula has to be that and not going to change and just be consistent for 2 years. And if still doesn't work, you need to, no, that has to change.
Hmm.
Maybe they have a viral video, maybe recreate the same video, but with another footage, with another voiceover. Like, for example, there are a lot of TikTokers that they post the same video that became viral and they just post in captions. And it's like, and then again, the algorithm helped them to be viral again. So let's do that too. Why not?
Yeah.
So the idea is to analyze what is working, what is not working, and maybe shift to another vision. Now, I would also recommend to have someone to help you with that. If you don't have a budget, you can have an intern. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that it's going to replace an strategy. I'm not saying that it's going to replace someone that has the experience, but Gen Z, they know what is going on.
Hmm.
Right? They're consuming TikTok like television, like Netflix. So they can give you kind of like the point of view of that. Now, of course, depending on the product you have, if your product is more like a mature audience, maybe the internet is not the ideal, but at least you have someone that can do a research of content. So
Yeah.
it's very important always to do a research in the market.
Yeah. What's working? I loved several things that you just said. So one, find out what's working well and do more of that. I think we don't check the analytics and look at the data enough to see like, oh, like this actually performed well. Why aren't you doing more of that? And I've seen what you're saying with I've literally seen a creator, he just uses the same sound and does the same dance over and over again and it
And it's still having millions and millions and millions.
millions. Yes, it
Yes.
works. And I think people are scared of like, oh, I don't want to be boring and do the same thing. But if it's working and people love it, like why not? Just do what's working well. So that's
Exactly.
great.
You have, for example, this influencer in New York that she used this
Uh-huh.
song every day for their morning routine, and I really like the song, and I really the kind of the journey that she is like bringing to the morning routine, and she's like a really huge influencer. So don't be afraid to use kind of the same tools to bring kind of the same vibe again, because no, it's gonna be repetitive, but people loves it. Why not?
Yeah, and not everyone is seeing your content also, you know?
In TikTok, for example, because it's not chronological in the for you page, it's not chronologic. You can repeat the same. On
Mhm.
Instagram, I will say, yeah, change maybe a little bit, but kind of like you could be a part one, part two of that.
Mhm.
So kind of like has a consistency. On TikTok, you can do a series about it. So
Yeah.
it depends what you want, but you need to analyze what is working and what not. Talking about ads, we do ads as well.
Mhm.
But to be honest, if your organic is not working,
Mm.
yeah, ads could work if it's like in target audience and everything. But you also need to figure out what in the organic way is going to still growing, because you can pay ads all your life, like all the time.
Yeah.
Can be like depending on that. So you need to figure it out in an organic way to grow. For example, I have an account that is BTS Bridal Besties. It's another business that we have that is more related with brides.
Yeah.
We were like 200 followers a few months ago, and now we're like almost 3,000. So at the beginning, yes, of course, it's like at the beginning, it's not easy to grow. But when you know what is working and you repeat the same kind of formula with different maybe topic and content, now every two videos is having like 70K views,
Mm.
100K views because of that. Because we understood, okay, this is what brides want and wedding planners. So they're consuming the content and we need to recreate something relatable, but also that is in the search engine of that platform.
Yeah, that's good, and I love what you said about figuring out the formula with organic before even, stepping into
Yes.
ads,
Ads
and
helps, but don't depend on that. Oh,
yeah, and I think if you have the organic formula down, it'll help you sustain the followers that you bring in through ads, right? Like, they'll continue to consume. But if you're not creating content that people like, yeah, they might follow you from an ad, but will they be consistent, followers and
and also it's
engagement?
very dangerous because sometimes if you don't have the correct agency, the quality of the followers that you're bringing with the ads are very spammy.
Mm,
At the end of the day, they're going to affect more than kind of like help you to grow. Why I'm saying that is because in the past, another client that they were paying ads, but the quality of the followers, it was not good.
yeah.
So it's not the ads that we did, of course, but it was, but the quality was not good. So you need to be very careful with that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that has to do with the targeting, right? The type of
Targeting, but sometimes when you're doing ads, to be honest, in some point I was like, I like TikTok ads, but now they're very expensive. So we do ads, of course, in Google, in Meta as well. But if you are not growing again organically, ads could help you. Yes, of course, they can help you in a specific way, but it's
Mhm.
better to don't depend on that all the time.
One other thing about ads too, I think is it true that ads, at least meta ads, that they are matching like audiences too? So whatever
Yes.
organic audience you have, they're gonna find more people like that as well.
Yes, but you, for example, you need a database that you need to upload so they can match the same kind of database and instead of
Yeah.
searching alike people that have the same target. That's why
Sure.
it's important not only social media, so also the email marketing. Email
Right.
marketing is so important. And email marketing, for example, to do events, online events or physical events, they are very good to create this type of a strategy for email marketing. If you're doing a giveaway as well, database is so important. For example, people are freaking out about TikTok going banned
Yeah.
again,
Yep.
and there are brands that only depend on TikTok. And what is going on is Instagram also is shutting down. You need a database. You need an email strategy.
Yeah. And so my last question then, because this is a great place to land, is with social media, it's wonderful. You can build communities of millions and millions of followers. We love it. But again, we want to convert and we want to nurture those customers and we want to take them with us. And on social media, we don't own those customers, right? Like TikTok could disappear again. So,
Exactly.
what is your advice for brands that are, doing this social media strategy to offload their followers onto an email list and get them again to convert into customers
There are many strategies. For example, one of them is like I was saying, first could be like a giveaway situation.
where you have
Or
to require them to sign up with their email, right? For the
yes,
giveaway? Okay.
yes. And you can post that on the Reels, on TikTok, and the form is link in bio or stories. You can link that. But also, for example, with other client, something that we're always doing is that they have like rewards,
Mhm.
different rewards, like a massage or something related more with the lifestyle of the target audience. In this case,
Mm.
it's more like a wellness. And you can win this if you have a review. For example, not only email list, also if you put a review, if you have a store, it's so important to have good reviews,
Mhm.
right? So if you put the review, we can give you that.
Gotcha.
You add your email list, we're going to reward you in this site. So that's very important as well, to reward the person that is giving you the information, because people don't want to add their email or phone number. So
Mhm.
it's when you need to incentivize them to do it.
Right.
Of course, in the case of studio, it's more easy because when they sign up, it's easier to have the email list. But in the website as well, when pops the first questionnaire as well, the email, always they put the discount, but I think it should be another option more attractive than a discount. Every time that it
Yeah.
pops like 15% discount, like whatever, I prefer to just skip and put my email.
Yeah, I feel like people are, like, kind of overlooking the discount now because it's like, first of all, if the customer is not a warm customer that's, like, ready to buy immediately, the discount's not an attractive offer to them.
Yeah,
Like, I've seen other ones where it's like you'll get, like, a free little gift item or something like that, and that more so I'm like, "Ooh, I want, like, when it comes to beauty, I want a free makeup pouch or, like, whatever that looks like."
exactly. I want
Yeah.
something physical. Something that I was missing, it was the events. Oh
Mhm.
my God, do events gives you the most database ever.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
well, do events with creators, with a cocktail brand, like a spring and a spritz, for example, event
Mhm.
that you're showcasing like the all the products, and also you're going to have a makeup artist and everything. People is going to have FOMO to go, and before they sign up on Eventbrite, you can launch first like a wait list.
Mm.
People love to sign up things when you are promoting correctly the event. And of course, they're going to put their email so they can know that they can subscribe in Eventbrite when you put live the event, and they're going to receive the email and then go to the event. So I think events are very, very good in email marketing as well. Like you can have a database in the events and you can know kind of like, okay, this person came from, I don't know, this district or
Mhm.
this area. So for events, the email list, it was very good.
Yeah, and then you can go back and market to those people later about the different products and offering you have. And I think for emerging brands too, if you don't have a budget for a live event, there's always like digital events too. I've seen brands now do, maybe digital fashion shows or
Yes.
whatever, different things
Yeah.
like that that still require an email sign up. And yeah, you're right. I feel like that converts really well and, gets a lot of people excited. And some people didn't
Even
even
valuable
show
back.
up.
Exactly. And to be honest, to do an event, you don't need a huge budget. What you need is good connections. So you can have someone with bites, someone with drinks, someone with
Sponsors, right?
flowers, sponsors.
Yeah.
And that has like, but don't look for big sponsors. Look for more local sponsors that are also open to collab. And you
Yeah.
can have an event.
Yeah. I've had experience with that before too. Just like even a local drink brand, sending them a simple email, because they want to promote their brand as well. And so if you guys can
Exactly.
combine and collaborate
And
to
they're open to do it 100%.
yeah, a lot of people it's out of their marketing budget, so and they get a return by you can tell them like, "Oh, we're gonna have a photographer at the event. So, we'll get you photos that you can post too," or something like that, some kind of trade-off, but you're right, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing.
Yes, and it feels more curated and everything. For example, I went to many New York Fashion Week events, and all of them, it was like a kind of collaboration, and I love it.
Mhm.
And you, even the owners of the brands were there, so you were connecting more like in
Yeah.
real life. Yeah, that was very cute, and it was like now that event is more in my mind. That other one, it was maybe bigger. It was, I don't know, Coca Cola or another brand that everybody knows, but
Yeah.
so yeah, events helps a lot as well.
Yeah, and even that is a social media moment. You'll have behind the scenes from
Mm.
your event. You can get email signups. You're like doing everything at once. So that's a great idea.
Exactly. And always also have the QR of your Instagram and socials and
Mm.
remember your tags so they can remember the tags always in the event and make that visible because they're not going to remember how is your name in your Instagram. So you have to put that in the QR or just the name. So don't forget to tag us so people remind that and they're taking pictures and always tag you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Zoila, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like you gave so many practical tips for our listeners, and I'm like ready to go implement some of these myself. For brands who are like, I want to work with the agency, like, I don't want to handle this on my own, I want to give this off to an expert. Where can they find you? Where can they connect with Nomad Agency?
They can find me on Instagram, Nomad the agency, or also my personal Instagram is Soy Castro Curiol. They can send a DM, they can send an email. We're all connected like 24/7
Yeah.
because we work in social media.
Yes.
And also in LinkedIn. I'm very active in LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to include all the links in the description so you guys can just click and go straight over there and connect with Nomad Agency. Thank you so much for all of your valuable information and insight. I'm so excited to connect with you again sometime soon.
Thank you for inviting me. It was so lovely today.